Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The press conference by Professor Welshman Ncube and some of his friends in the CCC faction. There are four factions, but this is one of the four that have now broken the links with Chamisa. Continues to attract a lot of media, social media attention, and rightly so too, because I think it is an interesting story in the sense that it sheds some light into this party called CCC. Whether we like it or not, MDC CCC they've played a very significant role in Zimbabwe's political arena. Some would say for the good, I would say for the bad, for the worst. I just want to play this short clip underlying one of the points that came up in that press conference, and that has been circulating in the social media.
We acknowledge in this council that the state and some state institutions, from the judiciary through parliament, ZEC, have recognized the signature of Senator Chabangu as the signature representing the party. We acknowledge that, contrary to what some of us have said in the past, that we didn't know Senator Chabangu, we did. He was a member of this body. He was a member of the National Executive, he was a member of the National Council. He attended the fateful meeting of 22 January 2022. That he was not the Secretary General. He assumed that position under strategic ambiguity. Therefore, it behoves us, and we so resolve. We must engage him as council, as a member of council, to resolve this issue. What should be his role going forward?
As you can see in the depiction there, somebody has edited this clip, replacing the head of Nelson Chamisa initially with the ZANU-PF emblem and now with a snake. Some people have said, well, Professor Welshman Ncube himself said that Nelson Chamisa destroyed CCC. But many of them lied, specifically when it comes to whether they knew or they didn't know Sengeso Tsavangu, the guy who assumed that he was the Secretary General and was able to recall a number of the CCC leaders. I think even Chamisa himself is guilty of that. When the recall started, it's on record that he said he didn't know who this guy is. But now we hear that he was actually a well-known party activist and leader. in the party. Professor Welshman Ncube said Nelson Chamisa has destroyed CCC, presumably with his ill-advised policy of strategic ambiguity, so that the party had no constitution, had no elected officials, had no party structure. He is right in saying that. But as far as the people of Zimbabwe were concerned, MDC CCC number one purpose was to implement the democratic reforms to end the ZANU-PF case of rigging elections. This task they singularly failed to do. And that failure did not come in the last 5 years when Nelson Chamisa was leader of the party. The failure happened particularly during the GNU, when the MDC leaders had the golden opportunity to implement the democratic reforms. Robert Mugabe bribed them with the trappings of high office, and they forgot about the reforms. All of them. Welshman Ncube, Tendai Biti, David Coulthard, Douglas Monzora, all the leaders who were in the 2008 to 2013 GNU sold out. And they did not stop there. Ever since the GNU debacle, they have participated in flawed elections, knowing fully well that ZANU-PF was rigging those elections. And that participating will only give ZANU-PF legitimacy. And still they participated out of greed. CCC MDC was destroyed long before Chamisa came on the scene with his strategic ambiguity. That is the point that I would like to make and to emphasize. How do I see ourselves getting out of this mess? Because it is a political mess. Whether we care to admit it or not, by participating in these flawed elections, Nelson Chamisa gave ZANU-PF political legitimacy. Even when SADC election observers and the AU election observers had condemned the elections, the 2023 elections, as flawed and illegal, the CCC leaders, the few who had got elected, still went ahead and took up their seats, claiming that wherever CCC had won, those were liberated zones. And the elections in those areas were free, fair, and credible. Of course, it was ridiculous. But as outsiders, SADC, as much as they would have wanted to see free, fair, and credible elections in Zimbabwe, the truth of the matter is they had to face the reality on the ground. I think SADC would have denied ZANU-PF political legitimacy, but they did not, and for two reasons. Number one, CCC leaders and all the opposition leaders in Zimbabwe participated in the 2023 elections, knowing fully well that they were flawed, knowing fully well that ZANU-PF was rigging the elections, and knowing fully well that participating will give ZANU-PF legitimacy. No one could deny that. I think what astonished the SADC leaders is the number, that no significant voice, either from the opposition leaders nor from the Zimbabwe public, raised the alarm that these elections are flawed and we should not be participating in it. There were only a few voices who objected, but the majority, no. They wanted to participate. Knowing all those things, I think it is very difficult for outsiders to start imposing standards if you, the people themselves, are happy. So we've got the opposition participating. As far as I know, all the opposition parties participated. And then the people themselves, in their millions, participated. Even those outside the country in the diaspora were cheering and applauding. Chamisa promised that CCC was going to win big because he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. Very few, again, people flagged that as untrue, as a lie, because it was untrue, because it was a lie. There's no way anyone could swallow that as the truth. He had not plugged any vote rigging loopholes. He was just saying it to hide why he and his fellow CCC leaders were hell-bent on participating in these flawed elections out of greed. The second reason why, in my view, SADC did not deny ZANU-PF political legitimacy is that immediately after the election, CCC started imploding with the recall of the elected members. The other members who had found they were not given the opportunity to participate in the elections, and therefore then to get a chance to win a seat on the gravy train headed by Tsavango, started recalling those who had successfully contested and won the elections. And as Professor Welshman Ncube correctly acknowledged, Tsavango's emergency and the reason why he was successful in staging all those recalls is without any doubt partly because the party did not have structures, did not have a constitution, did not have elected officials. Tsavango was able to do what he did because of Chamisa's strategic ambiguity. He was absolutely right. This left SADC in an unenviable position. If they were going to say, ZANU-PF, you've rigged the elections and we deny you political legitimacy, SADC leaders had to ask themselves, if we do that, what will be the next step? If the next step was to hold fresh elections. Fresh elections in which the main opposition party in the country is just imploded. What will that accomplish? ZANU-PF will be able to win those elections because there's no way you're going to get a new party emerge and be organized while at the same time they're campaigning for fresh elections. The alternative is a government of national unity. With whom? The opposition was imploding. And by January, Chamisa himself had left the party in a huff, resigned without even telling his colleagues that he was resigning, claiming that ZANU-PF had infiltrated the party. So the issue of Zimbabwe being stuck with the ZANU-PF dictatorship, we have got to blame MDC and CCC for it. They had failed to implement even one token reform in the 24 years the party was on the political stage, including the 5 years in the GNU. And they'd been participating in flawed elections to give ZANU-PF legitimacy. Those problems were already there, well established, well documented, repeated over and over again before Chamisa came on the scene. So it is not Chamisa who destroyed the opposition. This is just Professor Welshman Ncube trying to make Chamisa the fall guy of why we've got a failed opposition. But what is the way forward for the people of Zimbabwe? The way forward is for the people to learn that MDC, CCC have failed the nation in the task set before them, the number one task of implementing the democratic reforms to stop ZANU-PF rigging the elections. Why it has taken 24 years for people to realize that beggars belief. But it has. And many people even today have got a problem accepting that political reality. It's not helping the country at all. Chamisa is already making overtures of forming a new party, and there are many of his old followers who are willing to welcome him, and he'll be participating in 2028 with no reforms implemented, making the same or similar outrageous claims like I've plugged all the vote rigging loopholes, enticing people to participate in those flawed elections and ending us where we are. The biggest tragedy for Zimbabwe would be for the country to go through 2028 elections and repeat the same mistakes that were made in 2023 and the years before, participating in flawed elections to give ZANU-PF legitimacy. At the present moment, I'll be honest with you, I don't see how this nation is showing signs that we have learned something from the last 44 years of rigged elections. So we are likely to repeat ourselves over and over again. It'll be a pity. I'll just show one comment here from one of the It's Amos, just saying good evening. Thank you very much, Amos. But the point and the most important thing here is we should not be fooled by the empty promises that Chamisa or the likes of Professor Welshman Ncube are making. They will never ever admit that they failed. Being incompetent, breathtakingly incompetent, and corrupt, those are not mistakes. You do not cure that. In other democratic countries where leaders are held to account, all these MDC, CCC leaders would have been forced to apologize for selling out to the country and take a bow and walk into the sunset. But not so in Zimbabwe. We seem to like recycling deadwood, be it in ZANU-PF or in CCC. And it is that is the root cause why we are a failed state. And we are stuck in this position. And until we learn, I don't see how we're going to get out of it. At the present moment, I'll be honest with you, I don't see any concerted effort by many Zimbabweans out there to break the mold. We seem to like recycling our dead wood. But by failing to make the decision and make the decisive break, we are only perpetuating our own suffering. Both ZANU-PF and CCC MDC are not going to get us out of this mess. I've been many times accused of we are not offering a solution. The solution is simple and clear. Without reforms, we should not participate in these flawed elections. We should make it abundantly clear that we are not participating in flawed elections again. And I believe if we were to speak with a loud enough voice, SADC will have the courage to step in and deny ZANU-PF political legitimacy. But if we are foolish enough to be conned into believing that CCC or whatever new party Chamisa is coming up with is going to win big because he has plugged all the vote rigging loopholes, and we participate in another flawed elections in our millions, then SADC will be powerless to act. And indeed, they did act in 2008. The GNU that followed achieved absolutely nothing. If I was SADC, why would I want to go through that all over again? To what end and purpose? Thank you very much, Regis, is saying the snake logo, my foot. Is this prophetic, the character of these individuals? Well, if you are accepting that the MDC, CCC leaders failed to implement democratic reforms after 24 years, I will agree with you that really they have failed the nation. I don't think anyone with half a brain would ever be so easily fooled into believing that they can offer anything to the nation. Thank you very much for joining me tonight, and we'll do it again tomorrow. Same time, 7 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwe time. Thank you and good night.